One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. China Jude is the brand new Senior Associate AD for Administration and SWA at the University of Wyoming. When I mean brand new, this is day 5 for her and Laramie that we're presently talking. So very, very new to Wyoming. Of course, China spent 6 years as the AD at Queens College, Division II institution, and then 4 years previous to that at Cheney. China, let's jump in, and we talked about how we wanted to frame up this conversation. Let's talk about the Queens story a bit and the financial situation you found that department when you walked in the door. And of course, so much of the narrative around Queens for your tenure there was then turning a surplus. And one of the interesting notes that I've read about this situation before is you looked at the situation and stopped initially and said, I need to understand the department finances clearly, but I also need to understand the campus culture before I move forward and implement my ideas on how to get to a break even and then into the black. So take me back maybe to that time at Queens when you started to devise the plan of how you wrap your head and hands and arms truly around the campus culture at Queens that helped you alleviate the financial burden.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for wanting to hear my story. Queens College, the City University of New York, is a very unique place. It is one of 16 sports-sponsored campuses in the City University of New York system, and it's the only Division II in the City University of New York and the State University of New York system. So Queens was the only game in town. And what made that model so interesting is with the institution among a sea of Division IIIs and junior colleges in the city system and Division IIIs and Division Is in the state system, Queens College specifically spent a lot of time focusing on raising monies to pay for scholarships and operating expenses through summer camps. And there were other revenue-generating resources there, but it did not make the money as it hoped to until I arrived, and we worked on some strategic plans to make sure that in generating $4.5 million annually was going to be put to good use. And the very first challenge was the $1.3 million deficit. So we put some plans together and worked with the staff, but the culture is really interesting because athletics has historically been known as having a very strong background in women's basketball back in the 70s, when Title IX was just turning the corner, or I should say starting, and then as well as a great tennis program. And really, that's all it was truly known for. We're really fortunate, when I departed, I had about 7 conference championships and about 13 NCAA regional championships under our belt when I departed 5 days ago. So learning the culture really made a significant difference because it was to find out exactly what the students, what the community, of course, what the leadership were expecting from an athletics department. Was it just mostly for participation, or was it to actually win championships? And those are a lot of conversations that I had to have with staff, with faculty, with students, as well as the community.
As you've recounted this story to your peers, let's just say in the Division II space, and as we know, no Division II athletic department is like another. They all have their different challenges. They all have their different hurdles. They all have their different benefits and built-in advantages in some ways. What have been maybe the key points of focus you've said to your peers? Here's what I did, but here's the whole list. Here's the overarching approach to how you should think about it at your institution. And you mentioned in the last of the comments, understanding the culture, but what are maybe the consistent lines of inquiry that ADs at the D2 level should ask of their department and their campuses to improve their financial situation, whatever it may be, because that is certainly a driver for anybody in the top tier of an athletic department?
Well, I try to address every position that I enter in looking at the three C's. So when exploring culture, the first C is compliance and making sure that it's not just the NCAA compliance, but how the core values, the integrity, the rules, the policies, work within that particular culture. Is it loose? Is it strict? In the City University of New York system, it's extremely strict. There are 24 total colleges, but 16 of them were sports sponsored. So anything that we did, we had to go through legal counsel. And I mean anything from marketing, sponsorship deals, procurement deals, apparels. I mean, the slightest little thing, even just a regular game contract, we had to go through legal counsel. So just learning the compliance. The second part is just the competitiveness. So that's the second C. And so the question we need to ask ourselves as administrators in any environment we go into, how competitive does the institution want to be? Whether it's academic competitiveness, athletics, recruiting, community service projects, whatever it's going to take in order for the department to get to the next level, to attract new students and, of course, to retain the current students. And then the third part is championships. Not everyone can be a championship caliber department. Sometimes that the financial resources may not always be there to attract coaches or even to attract the student athletes. But championships was something that was pushed heavily from myself to my staff, because my staff pretty much told me we want to win championships. We don't want to work at a college where we're just participating. So once we all decided what those three C's were, we wanted to make sure that we communicate that to the alumni base, because the alumni plays a significant part of financial giving, and we wanted them to be a part of our success as well. And that really made a significant difference for us to get to the next level and getting the resources for us to win these 7 conference championships and the NCAA regional championships. So I think that really, for the most part, any and every athletic administrator or head coach that walks in the door, ask where those three C's line in the core values of that department and that institution, and that's a great place to start.
I always enjoy asking administrators kind of these perspective questions in terms of looking back on their careers. And the three C's that you just communicated are clearly a framework that have been developed because of the Queen situation, but for those who don't know, I mean, you were the head volleyball coach at UNC Wilmington in the late 90s, early 2000s. You were the head volleyball coach at the University of District Columbia. Then you were Coppin State, Cheney, Queens. I mean, hit me with a couple of, I remember vividly when this happened to me as a coach, as an administrator, and when it became crystal clear that this was a core component of how you build, how you attain this culture that you need to have to understand, and we're talking about in a financial sense here, but to understand a department. Are there some instances that you can recall in your career that jump off the page to you on when you started to develop this plan in your mind?
Well, it's interesting because this plan was actually brought to my attention when I first became an athletic administrator at Coppin State under Ron Fang Mitchell, who was doubling as the director of athletics as well as the head men's basketball coach. I knew it was always in my brain and in my passion and in my core value. Words, meaning the three C's, did not come into play until I arrived at Coppin State. See, what a lot of people do not know about me is that I did not get into collegiate sports until the age of 33. So I had a life before then, which worked in community social services. I've worked for a number of politicians, plus I was a broadcast journalist. So I really did have that diverse skill set to really help me get to that next stage. And I really, for the most part, stumbled into collegiate sports. Someone thought I would be great at it. I said, oh, let's just try it, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing led to another. But pretty much the aha moment was when those 3 C's that were presented to me by the athletic director at Coppin State. And I said, wow, that's exactly how I feel. I just did not know how to formulate those into words. So, and I stuck with my 3 C's. At times I've added some extra C's like culture and, so I wanted to make sure that no matter where I go, that I was going to follow those C's throughout my journey, and then that was going to keep my core values in line. And pretty much all of my peers, they know exactly where I stand and what the attention that I'm going to put on being pretty much a servant leader as well as a resource to our student athletes. So the community service and the social services background that I do have really plays a significant difference on making sure that our student athletes have a great experience in the collegiate level.
One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.